Hello, my name is Shara Vickers. Thank you for joining me as I discuss social cognitive theory with motivational interviewing. Social cognitive theory was developed by Albert Bandura. Initially, it was known as the social learning theory. It's a basis for understanding and predicting behavior. As such, it's useful for designing behavior change interventions. One of the key constructs of social cognitive theory is the notion of reciprocal determinism. And that states that there's a dynamic interplay among the factors you see here on your screen. These are personal factors like your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, your behavior, and in your environment. So there's a dynamic interplay, and a change in any one of these can produce a change in any one of the other. And that's a key construct in the social cognitive theory. In looking at the social cognitive theory, in promoting health behavior change, Bandura identified these core determinants of health behavior change. There has to be a knowledge of health risks and the benefits to change, so you have to be aware of your situation, aware that you need to change, or aware of the benefits to changing. You need to have a sense of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy can be positive or negative. A good sense of self-efficacy can have a positive impact on all of the other factors you see here. And as such, Bandura identified self-efficacy as a key core determinant. So this one sort of stands out, and it's our focus. Self-efficacy is your sense of your ability to change, your readiness to change, your perception that you can change, and your entire sense that you're able to follow through with change on all the mental, emotional, social levels. Outcome expectations. If you don't see some sort of benefit to change, if you don't expect some sort of outcome to arise, then there's no point to changing. Goals and strategies to meet the goals. This is again very important, and it's a determinant of your health behavior change. Social facilitators. These can be outside influences such as friends, family. The media can be a factor here. Support groups are also social facilitators. And perceived impediments. Impediments are, of course, roadblocks or barriers to change. And what you perceive to be an impediment may not be an impediment to someone else. Therefore, Bandura used the term perceived impediments. However, they are very real to the person who is seeking to change. And again, a strong sense of self-efficacy can influence all of these others. So if you have a really good sense of self-efficacy, major roadblocks suddenly become ways to get around these roadblocks. People with good self-efficacy have bigger goals, stronger goals, and better strategies to meet those goals. They also tend to have bigger and better outcome expectations. We see a quote by Bandura on the side here. In order to succeed, people need a sense of self-efficacy, to struggle together with resilience, to meet the inevitable obstacles and inequities of life. And I think that sort of sums up what we're talking about here, that all of these things may play a role in your ability to change. They can be both positive or negative, and ultimately we want to work toward making them all positive to help facilitate positive change. So how do we improve self-efficacy? Bandura felt there were 4 sources of information to form or inform your feelings of self-efficacy. Performance accomplishments. These are your previous experiences. Drawing on past success in one area can help you to improve your feelings of self-efficacy in another area. Vicarious experience. This is the notion of modeling, that you can see someone else make the change that you want to change, and through seeing their success, you realize that you can be successful too. Verbal persuasion. Bandura notes that verbal persuasion isn't as effective as these other two. However, you can be verbally persuaded to feel more self-efficacious. Someone can point out your strengths to you or work with you to verbally improve your thoughts and feelings around self-efficacy. So again, this is positive reinforcement and supportive discussions, or someone just pointing out strengths that you may not have been aware of. In your physiological state, Bandura talked about this a lot in a negative sort of way, or as a negative informant of self-efficacy. He discussed stress and anxiety and how you may be self-efficacious in one scenario, but if you're feeling stressed or if you're feeling anxious, you may no longer feel self-efficacious. So he suggests finding coping strategies for dealing with these anxious states and learning to overcome the anxiety associated with change. But physiological states do inform our feelings of self-efficacy. Ultimately, to improve self-efficacy, we want to have all of these 4 areas sending the same message and reinforcing the belief that we can change. Self-regulation is another key construct in the social cognitive theory. It involves a system of self-checks. We're not going to discuss it in depth, but ultimately it's a way of looking at your life and making sure it's matching up. You want to make sure that you are doing the things you want to be doing, that your behavior matches your expectations, that you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. And in self-regulation, long and short-term goals are key elements. Your long-term goals, of course, paint the big picture, where they are emphasize where you want to be and the changes you want to make. Your shorter-term goals are the stepping stones that help keep you on track. They are the path you take that leads you on your way to your long-term goals, and these serve as little self-regulatory self-checks. So if you're meeting your short-term goals, you know you're on your way to your longer-term goals. Motivational interviewing is a counseling style. The spirit of motivational interviewing is described as a way of being with a client. It's a collaborative approach. It's a partnership. You see the two people pushing the pieces of the puzzle together here. It's working together. There's no expert in the motivational interviewing relationship. Both people are experts, in fact. One is the expert on change or finding motivation. The other is the expert on their life, and they work together in a collaborative approach. It's a true partnership. Motivational interviewing is autonomous. The client who wants to change is autonomous. They're changing on their own accord. They're self-directed in their willingness to change and their want to change. And the change they are working toward hasn't been imposed on them. It's not the idea of the counselor. It's their own idea. As such, evocation is a key element here. Motivational interviewing subscribes to the belief that everyone has what they need to change within them. They have the motivation to change inside, and that it's for the counselor to help evoke this, to elicit change talk, to elicit the concepts and the motivations to change. And that's another key element here. And of course, compassion. Motivational interviewing is a compassionate approach. Empathy is a big factor. You want to be able to identify with your clients, to appreciate their circumstance and their situation, and be truly empathetic and compassionate toward their situation. When the spirit of motivational interviewing is inserted into other counseling styles or even a brief healthcare situation, it improves the outcome of that situation. There is evidence to support this notion. Additionally, motivational interviewing helps increase adherence to treatments. It keeps people coming back. There is evidence that when motivational interviewing is added to a standard treatment, the person being treated is more likely to come back. So that's just adding in this collaborative, supportive spirit. Not even necessarily the techniques of motivational interviewing, but just this positive spirit. The techniques of motivational interviewing are very often used early on, and they're used in conjunction with another treatment later on. For example, social cognitive theory may be used to inform the later treatments. Ultimately, early on, motivational interviewing works to resolve ambivalence to change. So it's a good starting off point. It helps the counselor to identify why the person wants to change and helps that person to draw out their own internal motivations to change. Again, it increases self-efficacy. We discussed self-efficacy before, and motivational interviewing does help with this. And again, the concept of evocation is key here. We noticed earlier that Bandura said that verbal persuasion wasn't as effective as the other methods of improving self-efficacy that come from within. Again, here we're seeing that MI, or motivational interviewing, seeks to evoke from the client their own reasons for change. It seeks to evoke their own feelings of self-efficacy, their own strategies, their own support systems. So again, evoking or eliciting is a key element here. And you can see that motivational interviewing will help to improve feelings of self-efficacy because it helps the counselor, or the tools used help the counselor to help the client to draw out their own internal desires for change. So again, motivational interviewing could definitely help inform social cognitive theory, a scenario where a client is seeking change through social cognitive means. And I guess that ultimately sums up what I wanted to say here for today. I appreciate your time, and as we look at the references, I would like to say that again, I do appreciate your time and I welcome your feedback. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me. And again, I thank you for your time, and I do hope this was constructive and informative.